So if you're doing an ICO, if you want institutional money, they don't know what the fuck that is.
Yeah.
And so we go around explaining to people, Bitcoin, blockchain, money laundering. Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies are one thing. Blockchain is how these things are built. Money laundering is still the domain of the US dollar.
Sure.
And so after we walk them through and they're comfortable with the subject, and we've not necessarily dumbed down blockchain, but elevated it to an executive level, because these are all the people with the purse strings. So if you don't have their buy-in, they're never going to invest in you. So we don't ICO, but we provide educational services to executives so they can go to their parties and say the buzzwords. They feel smart when they're in meetings, so they're not embarrassed, because particularly in the Middle East, they don't want to be embarrassed. Because it's like, oh, I don't know what cryptos are, I don't know what blockchain is. They don't want to have that in a meeting.
Absolutely, yeah, the messaging is so important.
Yeah, they can be like, oh yeah, blockchain, Samson says it's not hot sauce, you can't put that shit on everything. And I know about Ethereum, Litecoin, et cetera, and you're doing an ICO, tell me about it. That's all they actually need to know. And then they'll be like, okay, this is interesting, give me your information, I'll have someone from my team follow up. 99% of the time, that's all the executives want to be able to say. Because later when they delegate that task to someone to do research on the company, then they'll be like, that's full of shit.
Yeah.
Or, hey, we should actually invest in this. But most ICOs, they're so intent on telling you about blockchain and how it works, right?
As opposed to getting to the meat of how it's integrated with their
how is it going to impact my business?
Yeah.
Why is it such a disruption? What do I need to do to position my business to not be as disruptive or to adapt? So that's where the strategy comes in. It's different than the technical stuff. The technical stuff is super important. We have this segment we do, it's called Blockchain, the Santa Claus Perspective. So Santa Claus is the ultimate global executive. So he's delivering execution. That's his actual only job. He's got a bunch of fucking elves. They build technical stuff. They build stuff. So you have all these blockchain devs who, they build stuff. They're the elves. You should get back in that shop and build us something.
Yeah.
But if you're a CEO, a global CEO, then you should go and think, oh, I'm only in charge of execution and delivery. So as the elves are building stuff, how does this impact my business? How does this impact my revenue? And that's where we take a slightly different perspective on blockchain. We appreciate the technical aspects of it, but until people who control the purse strings understand, like, oh, that's why this is important when they say it's the Internet 3.0. This is the disruption. I'm an intermediary. I'm an incumbent. I'm about to get Ubered. They're like, oh, let me switch up my tactics or my strategy.
Sure.
So yeah, that's what I do.
So in a nutshell, that's what the services, or some of the services that your firm provides.
Yeah. Axes and eggs, our motto is we answer the questions you can't Google. So, because if you can Google something, don't fucking ask us. Go Google it. That's actually it. But if you can't Google something because you're doing something that's first of its kind, unique, never been done before, that's what we're here for. Particularly when we talk to the regulatory folks. They've never written regulations for this. There's existing securities laws, but then they don't understand blockchain or cryptocurrencies because they think Bitcoin, blockchain, money laundering as one and the same thing, like they're interchangeable.
You're basically trying to, I guess, disprove that perspective.
Yes.
And rather realign that perspective into the reality of which cryptocurrency fits within, hopefully, a future monetary model.
Because that way, when we talk about Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, blockchain being that tech that builds cryptocurrencies, and then money laundering, the banks have 300 years experience on that. The best money launderer in the cryptocurrency space, they might have 7. I'll give you 7 years experience.
That's an interesting angle to take, right? So you tell someone that has only known, someone that's, head of governance and regulations in the financial world, and they've only known institutional, finance. You tell them that basically institutional finance has been basically hindering the evolution of our entire species, so to speak, or rather hindering its enablement.
No, it's a matter of patent trolls. The good folks from Bank of America, they have about 43 or 45 patents on blockchain-like technology. JP Morgan Chase has had over 100 patents denied. So they're aware of the technology because it gives them the efficiencies that they want, but they still want to be able to control it because as an intermediary, they collect all the fees. and you don't want to get rid of your own business.
Absolutely, but you said you worked with people in the governance space. So, you know, I'm curious how you go about convincing someone that, again, has only been programmed to see things in a very conventional and institutional way. You know, how you convince them otherwise.
It's tough. So my name is Samson from Axes and Eggs. You can find us online at Axes and Eggs on Twitter and social media and all that good stuff. Or you can follow me at Hustle Fun Baby. I forgot to introduce myself. And so one of the things that we do when we talk to executives or people who are unfamiliar with it is we explain what blockchain is. We use this example that blockchain is like a group text message. So we're all on this group text message. I have a name, you have a phone number, we're sending information, data. Sometimes it's a meme, it's a photo, it's an address, and in this group text message there's 220 people, whatever. Every time I enter, that data gets exchanged. It's on a ledger, it's in that group text message. It makes so much sense. And so when people think of blockchain as a group text message, just because I deleted off of my phone, it still exists on yours, as well as everyone else in the group text message. So you've got a ledger, it's immutable, and it's distributed. It may or may not be public, it depends, and you can have public chains and private chains, but at a high level, when you think of blockchain as a group text message, and you explain it to the old folks in government who don't even use email, they're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And then it really drives home when I say, I have 10 bucks, I give you 5, and you give someone 3. Now everyone sees in this group text message, Samson only has $5. You had 5, but now you only have 2 because you gave this other person 3. And that's how that ledger of accounting system works. And so you can't go back and change it. It's immutable, it's distributed. Oh my goodness, blockchain is just like a group text message. And then they get it. And then, and I say in that example of those 10 bucks, where's the bank? And then they're like, oh, fuck, that's now I've got their attention, and we can actually, and they can repeat this analogy at their parties so they feel smart, which is important because we want their buy-in. Otherwise, they just ignore you, and they're like, money launderers, drug dealers, sex traffickers.
Interesting. See, and that's the thing. I feel like you're coming at a good angle. You're not addressing the accusations or the implications that currently exist with today's perception. You're rather, you know, explaining a technology to them where if they were able to understand it, they would realize that, listen, it just doesn't, it doesn't just enable these sort of vices and these sort of practices. Like, here's a whole world of applications, and start thinking about that. I think that's very important. And yeah, if there's anything else you'd like to add, you know.
No, I think that you need to educate people, because in order to have mass adoption, you need humans. And humans need to be comfortable with this technology.
You hear that, humans? We need you to get comfortable. I know you're comfortable in your beds right now, safe and sound, but there are people and places around the world that could use this technology.
And so part of humans being comfortable with something, people fear stuff they don't know or unfamiliar. My grandmother, when I first got her an iPad, I don't want to use that, but then I showed her she could talk to all her grandbabies on it through FaceTime. Now she's better at it than anybody. And so removing that fear, that FUD, is that first step to mass adoption. And it starts with mass awareness, education, then adoption. So while everyone is trying to ICO, which I think is great, you also need to think, how are you going to sell your business, not just raise money for it? Because at some point you have to stop explaining how the tech works and start talking about your business. So we help ICOs in the sense that we're out doing education so that they can actually focus on their business and not just that fundraising mechanism that is an ICO. Sometimes people get a little bit confused.
Yeah, absolutely. I like the differentiation there, and I think it's a really great business model on your end. So excited to stay connected and see what, you know.
Absolutely. Oh, I'll give you one more thing, and then I'm gonna let you have your rest of your show. Thank you very much for having me on. Some people call me a blockchain expert. I tell them, no, I'm not a blockchain expert. Blockchain experts haven't been born yet, I'd like to think. And so, and it's sort of like saying I'm a Wi-Fi expert, right? So I could explain to you how Wi-Fi works. Everybody just wants to know the password. And so in 5 years, a blockchain expert will be like introducing yourself, I'm an internet expert. And so it's like, are you in security? Are you a CISO? Yeah. You're an internet expert? What does that even mean? I assume you have some really boring job in a cubicle somewhere where you monitor or fix the internet. Sure. And so for the moment, we introduce ourselves, or some people might introduce themselves as a blockchain expert because it's new, it's novel. When we have mass adoption of blockchain, it will be the same thing as introducing yourself as an internet or a Wi-Fi expert. People will be like, okay, and? So, but that's a good thing. But we should also be prepared that as the industry grows up, as the technology becomes more well known, you might not be a blockchain expert for more than this long. So you need to think of, as we're building these systems, what business am I actually going to be in? Because if blockchain is the internet 3.0, you're not an internet expert. Amazon is not an internet expert. They use the internet to do their business. So for ICOs and folks who are coming into the blockchain space, think about it from this perspective. Blockchain is a tool to execute your dream, execute your business plan. Okay, now that you know that blockchain is like the internet, how is it helping you build your business? That way you don't think that you and blockchain are one. It's just a tool. So that's the last thing I'm going to say.
I love that. Just a tool, and a tool is, you know, is as useful as the person that wields it, right? That's right.
That's right. If you give me a hammer, I just break shit. You give some other people a hammer, they build stuff.
You're starting to sound like Nick Spanos. Appreciate the time, brother. Amazing, man.